Well, thank you for the worship. Wonderful to be together and to express our adoration for Jesus. And we've come for that reason. I want you to turn to Matthew chapter 6. And we're really zeroing in this morning on Matthew chapter 6, verse 6 itself. But we're going to begin reading at verse 5. And you'll remember he's taking the premise of the Sermon on the Mount and he's applying it, of course, to religion. And he's dealing with three areas of religion that's in every basic fundamental religious movement. And that is the area of generosity, charitable deeds, which he deals with in the first 4 verses. And then he moves into the area of prayer, which goes from verse 5 down through verse 14. And then the area of spiritual discipline, where he talks about fasting as one of those disciplines, verse 16 and following. We're dealing with the issue of prayer, and in verse 5, which we talked about last Sunday, we discovered some amazing truth. We're moving into verse 6 and going to try to tie the two together. So verse 5, Matthew chapter 6, verse 5. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corner of the streets, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly, I tell you, they have their reward. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father, who is in the secret place. And your Father, who sees in secret, will reward you openly. You say, hey, Manley, you dealt with this passage last week. That is true. And the Sunday before that, you covered it as well, because we did an overall view of this passage. That as well. That is true. So this sermon this morning is going to be a repeat. That is true. So what you're going to say this morning, you've probably already said. That is true. That is very true. But it's not my fault. Jesus did that. Everything he said about charitable deeds, he says, now I want to say about prayer. And he just repeats the same phrases and goes over the same material. And you would ask, why does he do that? And of course the answer is because you didn't get it the first time. In fact, you probably didn't get it the second time. In fact, I'm working on the 8th, 9th, 10th, 15th, 20th, and I'm still getting it, trying to get it. Because see, what Jesus is doing is so radical. It's so off the wall. It is so, what? I've never thought that. I've never heard that. That's never come across my path. See, according to Matthew chapter 5, Jesus has taken the disciples aside. Yes, there's a multitude there. But he's really looking them in the eye, and he's saying, hey, I want to tell you where this thing is going. And guys, what you've been experiencing, what you've known, well, I know about religion. You don't know about this. Well, I know about prayer. You don't know about this, guys. Well, I know about 9 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon and the scheduled prayer. I know, but that's not this. But hey, I know about going down to the synagogue and have, that's true, but that's not what we're dealing with here. Jesus says this thing is going to a whole new level of what is called prayer. In fact, it is so radical that what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to revamp your entire thinking, and you know it's harder to unlearn and then learn than it is just to learn. So you'd be better off if you didn't know anything. But that isn't where you are. Therefore, we're going to have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. So Jesus goes over it and over it again. In fact, in chapter 5, he gives 6 illustrations of what this new level is all about. Now he's applying it to prayer. And all of this is just a repeat of the same identical thing that he's been talking about all along. It's the new place that he's taking us and what we find in him. Now, he uses illustrations, and one of the illustrations that he uses in charitable deeds, he also uses in the prayer issue. It's the issue of the hypocrite. It's the illustration of the hypocrite. The hypocrite gives charitable deeds, but why is he a hypocrite? It isn't the deed that he does that makes him a hypocrite. It's the fact that what he's after is he's actually wanting to receive, but he acts like he's giving. So in the act of giving, he's really got the undercurrent motive of receiving. He wants the applause of men. In fact, he not only wants the applause of men, Jesus says, but as he gives the charitable deed and men applause, he bows, but he's also applauding himself. So one of the reasons he does charitable deeds is that down inside it makes him feel good about himself. So he not only receives the applause of men, he receives the applause of himself, which is all about the reason he gives charitable deeds, which makes him a hypocrite, because he acts like he's generous, but he's not. He's selfish. Now Jesus says, take that and let's jam it into prayer in verse 5. He says a hypocrite does the same thing in prayer, in the realm of prayer. He prays, why? To receive the applause of men. See, he calculates 9 in the morning, he's supposed to pray. Wherever he is at 9 in the morning, stop and pray. Wherever he is at 3 in the afternoon, stop and pray. So he calculates his journey. He gets up, has his breakfast, goes about his business, and calculates so that at 9 o'clock, he will be at the busiest corner in town. Here I am at the busiest corner in town. It's 9 o'clock. I've got to pray. So he gets to pray in front of everybody, and everybody says, whoa. Hypocrite. Because he appears to be talking to God when he's really talking to others and wanting the applause of men. And the other applies as well, because he prays. Why? Because it makes him feel good. 9 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. I meet my requirement, so it's all wrapped up in himself. Now, Jesus says he gets his reward. What is his reward? What does he get out of that? Well, the applause of men. That's all he gets. Because God is not involved. Now, he comes to a conclusion in this matter of charitable deeds and prayer. And the conclusion is found in the verse that we want to deal with, which is verse 6. The conclusion for charitable deeds and the conclusion for what he has to say about prayer is the same. Again, repeat. What's the conclusion about charitable deeds? Look at verse 4. That the charitable deed may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly. That's the conclusion. That's where he comes to. That's what it's all about. Hey, do a charitable deed, but do it in secret, because your Father is in secret, and then when he's involved, the reward he is involved in as also. Well, what about prayer? Well, verse 6 is the conclusion. It says the same words. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you've shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Now, it's interesting in the translation that I read, you may not have that translation, so this may not be true for yours. But in my translation, in verse 6, the Father who is in the secret place, the word place isn't there, so strike that out. It may be eliminated in your translation, but it's not there. It's just the Father who is in the secret. Also, the word open, he goes on to say, the Father who is in the secret place is not there, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Openly is not there, so strike that out. Well, why'd they put that in there? It's an interpretation, folks. In other words, it leads you to think that secret is a private thing, and that what Jesus is after in prayer is do it privately, which would eliminate all public prayers, which would mean the book of Acts and the many times that the early church got together and prayed together would be wrong and evil, because Jesus said don't do it. But see, he's not talking about private. He's not talking about isolated. He's not talking about when you pray, isolate yourself so nobody knows you've prayed. He's not saying that. He's talking about, well, it's imagery. He uses imagery to describe it. Do you see it in verse 6? He says, when you pray, go into your room. Now again, he's not talking about isolating himself or yourself. He's talking about go into your room, and he's talking about shut the door. Why? Because He's talking about distractions. He's talking about not isolation and privacy. He's talking about not about a physical place. He's talking about a spiritual place that you are to go to when you pray. And the spiritual place is called the secret place. Now, I've told you before, repeat, that the secret really is hidden. Secret gives you the idea that nobody knows. That's not what he's talking about. Hidden is a better translation, because the word hidden and the word mystery are connected in the New Testament. And when you come to the New Testament, this hidden mystery, which is a mystical experience with God. In other words, what he's talking about is, he's talking about not a physical place, a spiritual place, which is a hidden place that nobody else can see or know, because it's unseeable, but it's known between you and God, and it's at the hidden intimacy place of oneness with him. It's the premise of the Sermon on the Mount. What's the premise on the Sermon on the Mount? You're a self. That's true. You have self characteristics that nobody else has. In fact, we've hammered this with you. The idea that your fingerprints are different than anybody else's. Nobody has them. That's a unique thing about yourself. You are a self. You have a DNA that nobody else has. That's a unique thing about yourself. Again, look at your face. Nobody has a nose like mine. It's a unique thing about myself. And I would just announce to you, the Bible says, made by God. Wow, proud of it. Anyhow, so, self. You are a self. We got that. You are unique self. We got that. Nobody's trying to do away with self. But self, when you go to the heart of self, what do you find? Jesus says you find helplessness. And when self goes off by itself and operates only out of itself, it operates out of helplessness, which ends up in chaos. Wow. Haven't I experienced that in my life? One guy said, when I do what I like, I don't like what I do. The Chinese have a proverb: he who spits in the wind spits in his own face. Try it. Stick your head out the car. See, when I operate out of helplessness, when I operate out of myself, by myself, do my own thing, operate out of myself, I operate out of helplessness, and helplessness always brings, well, I'm not adequate. I couldn't pull it off. I couldn't get it done. It didn't work out. There were variables I didn't know about. I didn't know they were going to do that. I didn't know she was going there. I didn't know he would say that. I didn't know where they would react that way. I didn't know that. See, I didn't know there was going to be a COVID. I didn't know that. I did the best I could. I know. I operated the best I could. I know. I'm doing the best I can. I know. And what is that all about? That's operating out of self, which has at its heart helplessness. And I was never meant, ladies and gentlemen, repeat, I was never meant to operate out of myself. I was created by God that I might live in my helplessness, and he would come in his greatness and literally this is the new level Jesus says I want to take you to. This is the new level I'm going to die, be resurrected, ascend to the right hand of the Father to get you into. This is the new dynamic that we're moving into, guys. The self, what's operated out of helplessness, is now going to be filled with the resource of the nature of God. And when those two get together, where they get together is called secret place. The hidden place. You can't see. It's not a room you go to. It's not a physical location. It's not an isolation. It's an intimacy. See, it's the vine, I'm the branch. And where the branch and the vine come together and are intimately involved, and the life flow of the vine flows into the branch, at that intimate place, at that connected place, at that unity, That's the secret place. Prayer is that connection. Prayer is that merger. Prayer is that union. That's the hidden place. See, you don't visit that place. You live in that place. See, you don't make an appointment and go to that place to get counseling from God so you'll know what to do. You see, you live in that place. See, you don't come to church on Sunday morning to get your marching orders for the week. See, you live in that union. You live in that hidden place. You live in that place that he calls prayer. You actually vibrate there moment by moment. You actually flow. Everything in your life flows out of that place because that is a consistent living spot.
Thank you, Jesus.
Spiritual reality. Wonder of wonders. See, you're used to 9 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. Hey, God, addressing, telephone to the big sky, the big man upstairs. See, that's what you're used to. He says, I'm taking you to a whole new level where you're going to enter into the secret place and you're going to dwell there. It will not be an emergency room. Oh, I got a problem. Go to the secret place. Prayer. No. It's not an emergency room. It's the dwelling place. It's the oneness. It's together with him. And in that intimacy, oneness with him, the hidden place, when that takes place, stay there. We call that prayer. Well, that's not what I've always called prayer. I know. That's why I'm repeating. Because this is a new thought. See, this is, I've got to adjust. This is, wow. Maybe what I've always known hasn't been wrong, but wait, maybe Jesus is expanding this in my life. Maybe what I've done all this time hasn't been bad. Maybe what we did in the Old Testament wasn't evil. Maybe God even set it up himself, which he did. But maybe what God is doing now is taking me, whoa. Will you go? Will you listen? Repeat. Now let me help you with it as we move to verse 6 and get the elements of this. We'll break it down. He says, but you, number 1, commandment. Commandment. But you, when you pray, go. So there's a commandment involved. Now, it's interesting when you look at the verse, he starts with the word but, the contrasting conjunction. And what's he contrasting? He's contrasting a negative in verse 5 with the positive in verse 6. In other words, in verse 5, he says, don't do this in prayer. This is not right in prayer. This is what you don't want to be involved in prayer. Don't be a hypocrite. Act like you're praying to God when really you're talking to everybody else and wanting the applause of men. Don't do that. Well, if I'm not supposed to do that, what am I supposed to do? Oh, I want to tell you. That's verse 6. It's the positive, what I want you to do. It's interesting that the first word in the Greek language, original language of the Bible, the first word in verse 6 is the word you. It's just a pronoun. It's just a little word, you. But you. Now, it's also interesting, follow this, the word go is the verb. And go, in the Greek language, has the word you in it as well. So the word you is there twice. Well, why did he put it there at all if it was already in the verb? Because he's in your face. In other words, he's come right up, nose to nose. I'd do it if I could get by with it. But nose to nose with you and say, hey, I'm talking to you. That I'm not addressing the multitude that's here. Hey, disciples, I'm in your face. And I'm talking to you. This is, I don't see anybody else. We don't care about anybody else. Well, they didn't even come this morning. We're not talking about the people that didn't come this morning. Well, my family never, we're not talking about your family. See, well, the people I've known, we're not talking about the people you've known. I'm talking about you. Well, my friends don't. I'm talking about you. You, I'm in your face, and I'm talking distinctly, directly to you. Can you smell my breath? See, I'm in your face. That's what he's saying. You. Don't be like the hypocrites. Negative. Positive. But you, when you pray, go. Go. Now, the word go is the verb. It's an imperative, meaning it's a command. So you go, and it's in the active voice, which means you're responsible for the going. Nobody's going to pick you up. Nobody's going to whack you up the side of the head. Nobody's going to dump a bunch of cold water on your face. If this happens, you're going to have to respond to what's going on. So he says, I'm encouraging you in your face. Hey, talking to you, crank it up. Go, go, go. Now, it's also interesting that there's a second verb. Do you see it? Verse 6. But when you pray, go, verb number 1, into your room, and when you have shut the door, pray. Pray is the second verb. So you got go, pray. Pray is an imperative, command. So go and pray, both commands. And he's not talking, get it, he's not talking about a physical location that you're to go into a physical location to do this prayer thing. He's talking about this spiritual location of your connection and merger with God. And in that spiritual location where you and God merge together, where you and him, I'm the vine, you're the branch, and where the branch and vine intertwine and connect and life flows from, that's where you are to dwell. Dwell there in that go there. Now he backs this up. Look at this thing. He backs this up with some imagery. What's he say? Shut your door. I wanted to say, shut your mouth, but I didn't. Shut your door. Wow. It's a participle. It modifies the word go. In other words, it tells you what you're to do in going. The going is shut the door. He's talking about distractions. Why would you shut the door? Imagery for distractions. I can't pray. Why? I get distracted. What do you mean? Well, I'm busy all day. I know. I'm tired. I got it. I got people yelling at me. I know. So I'm just distracted. So how am I going to pray? I can't pray. Distractions. I know. You know about distractions. Let me give you some insight into distractions. We'll say you're sitting on the front row. Right in the middle of the sermon, you get up. You know what everybody does when you get up? They look at you. Because you can't make it down the aisle without them. So they look at you. And you walk down the aisle, they all watch you. Everybody's distracted. Now, I'm the preacher. What am I supposed to do? Nobody's listening. Everybody's... What am I supposed to do? Well, I could just shut up, sit down, and wait till you all come back. But I'm too kind for that. I'm a nice guy. So I don't do that. What do? I just keep talking. I just tread water. I just back up, repeat, just kind of go around in circles in that one spot. Till finally, after about 5 minutes, everybody, whoa, you're back. So then I take off again. Now we've lost 5 minutes. Then in about 10 minutes, oh, the person comes back. They come and we all, whoa. So everybody's gone again. So I could sit down, wait 5 minutes. Oh, you're back. But I don't do that. I'm kind. Hey. And I just back up, repeat, go around in circles. During that time, finally, everybody's back. We lost another 5 minutes. So my sermon is 10 minutes longer. And then you come up to me and say, why do you preach so long? It's not my fault, folks. It's distractions. Now, I know we have emergency. Nobody's bawling anybody out. Nobody's criticizing anybody. I know. But distractions, we deal with them. The hypocrite deals with distractions. See, he's distracted. Who's listening? Are they applauding me? Did I say it right? See, the hypocrite is all distracted. And what Jesus has said, hey, Don't be distracted. Don't be distracted by schedules. Well, it's not 9 in the morning. I don't pray except 9 in the morning. Don't be distracted by schedules. Well, I'm not in church. What's that got to do with anything? We're talking about connection. We're talking about intimacy. We're talking about don't be focused. Focus on Jesus. And we're not talking about the elimination of business. We're not talking about the elimination of life activities. We're not talking about the elimination of any activity in your life. See, get off of that. Well, if I just didn't have this pressure, no. See, we're not talking about the elimination of the pressure. Listen to this. When I was back in high school, I got a hold of this book called Crowded to Christ. The whole book was on this one idea. And the one idea, phenomenal idea, was the idea that every circumstance out here that comes at me takes me and pushes me. Where does it push me? Well, to Jesus. Because I'm focused on Him. So the more the devil tempts me, the more troubles I have, the more upsets in my life. That's why I'm so spiritual, because I have so much trouble. Isn't that a phenomenal idea? C.T. Studd was a great missionary. He said, it doesn't matter where the pressure lies. See, I'm always saying, if I could just get this pressure off me. If I just didn't have this pressure. If this pressure was off my back. If that didn't happen. If that stress, that's why I can't be what I ought to be. C.T. Studd said, no, you're here. Jesus is here. If the pressure never gets here. If the pressure gets here. If the pressure is always out here. So the greater the pressure, the better off you are. Why? It drives you to Jesus. So devil, bring it on, baby. Why? Because it's going to build me. It's going to shove me to Jesus. It's going to cause me. So the idea of shut your door is the idea of distractions. But we're not talking about, well, if I could just be a preacher and no, we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is the business. What would happen if I took this intimacy, if I took this prayer idea, if I took this oneness with Jesus, if I took, I'm helpless, He's come, He's filled me, and if I took, I'm the vine, He's the vine, I'm the branch, and if I took that connection and I marched it right into my world, right into my activity, right into my job, so that my job drove me to Jesus, and all day long I'm pulling on Him. So my job is not a distraction. My job, I don't need to eliminate my job. My job, I need Jesus in the middle of my. You didn't get it, but we'll repeat it another time. Commandment. So he starts out with this commandment idea. Now he moves, we've already mentioned it, but he moves then in the next step. As you walk through this, he automatically moves into the concentration, which is the focus idea. See, he says, shut your door. Got so tickled about this. The idea of shut, the Greek word, the original word for shut, comes from the root word for key. So shut has the idea of lock the door. It has the idea of locked off, lock it. So he's using imagery. So he says, what I want you to do in your focus is, I want you to march into this room and lock the door. And then he moves on with more imagery, and he talks about room. Now the Bible uses the word room for two ideas, but it doesn't matter which idea you accept. It all comes back to the same thing. Both of them will take you to the same place. The two pictures that the Bible gives. One is the inner room of a house. In other words, there's this room at the center of the house that has no windows. And when you get in it, sounds like the bathroom, doesn't it? But anyhow, it's the room that has no windows, and you shut the door and you're isolated from all the noise and all the distractions of the house. And you're in the inner. That's the word room here. Or, if you don't like that, there's the word room, and it's used for a storage place, but not just a warehouse type storage. It's used for a place where you put your most valuable possessions, and you store them there. So see, it's imagery for this focus idea where I take my life, I take what is really valuable. What's valuable to you? Oh, this connection. What's valuable to you? Oh, this oneness. What's valuable to you? Oh, this hidden place. This place in my life. Yeah, I've got fingers, I got toes, I got extremities, but wait a minute. I have this place at the core of my life where the God has literally invaded me, and I'm helpless, and he's literally invaded me and giving me resources spilling into the entirety of my life. And in that merging, in that oneness, in that unity with him, right there, that hidden place, that secret place, that's the most valuable thing in my life, and I'm going to focus there, shutting the door, throwing away the key, literally focusing that one thing. Wow. He calls that prayer. He told stories about this. See, there's this tenant farmer. He's plowing away. The field is full of rocks. Gets worse every year. He can't make a living. The house is falling down. Can't give his wife what she deserves. Can't take care of the kids. Has no future. He's got his head down. He's totally discouraged. He's plowing along. He strikes another rock, he thinks. He stops. With great discouragement, he starts to dig it out. As he digs it out, he finds it's a treasure worth millions. You know what he does? He buries it, covers it back up, goes on plowing. He buries it, covers it up, and goes to his wife and said, "Get all the junk furniture out. A yard sale. Sell everything we got. Everything's gone." Well, it's all we got. We can't get rid. Yes, everything's gone, man. We're going to take everything we own and we're going to dump it into what? Buying that field so that treasure's ours. And his whole focus is right here. Everything's gone, man. This is not one item among many things. This is it. And I'm going to take my whole life and I'm going to zero it in and focus it in on this intimate thing, this Jesus in me thing, this oneness with God. See, this is not 9 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. Did he hear me? I prayed. I don't know. I hope. Counting on it. I need it. But did he hear you? I don't know. See, I've lived there. Jesus says we're moving to a new level where you and him literally come together in such intimacy that he literally indwells you. And does he hear you? Good night is in you. Come on. And you focus everything right there. Now, I really hurried through that because I wanted to get this last idea. It is phenomenal. He says, he starts out with this commandment. There's a commandment. Go and pray. And what he calls prayer is the secret place right here. So when he gets the commandment, he says, focus there. Shut the door. Throw away the key. Let this be the storage place of the most valuable treasure of your life. And he calls that prayer. And then he says, as he did, this is repeat, as he did in all the other places. Look at the end of verse 6. And your Father, who sees in secret, will reward you openly. Now remember, openly is not there. So he says, go. We're not talking about a physical location. He says, go to the secret place, which is this place, which is the place of prayer. It's the place of intimacy. It's the place of oneness. It's the place of you and him all mixed up together. It's the place where his mind and your mind, your heart and his heart, you have become one with him. Your helplessness, his nature, and you have become with him, one with him. And in that hidden secret place, in that connection, that's what he calls prayer. He says, go there, shut the door. Let that be the total focus of your life, concentration. So commandment, concentration, then consequence. What will happen if you do that? Reward! Well, what's the reward? Wow, I like that. That's interesting. Because I want you to note, this is so phenomenal. I want you to note verse 5. Go back to verse 5. He talks about the hypocrites. They get a reward. They stand in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets that may be seen by men. Assuredly I say to you, they have their reward. And the word reward there for the hypocrites is the same word that's used for wages. Remember the verse? The wages of sin is death. The word wages there is the same word as reward here. In other words, you earn it. What do the hypocrites do? They get the applause of men. Why? They earned it by their flowery words, by their phenomenal phrases, by the way they handle themselves, by being on the street corner at 9. They get their reward. They earned it. That's the word. Now, when he comes to the Father giving you a reward in here, he changes words. They translated reward. I know. But it's not reward as the same as the hypocrite. It literally is the word that means payback. You get paid back. See, when you focus here, you get paid back. Well, what do you mean by that? We mean there are the natural consequences. That when you focus in the intimacy with him, when you are helpless and he comes in his overwhelming strength and you literally connect with him and he dwells within you, and this becomes the number one priority of your life, which he calls prayer. And there you are in this intimacy, communication with him in this intimacy, and you live there moment by moment by moment by moment. There are natural consequences that come out of that. How can I explain that to you? Well, I come home, walk in the door, turn to my wife and said, hey, where's my supper? Man, that trash stinks. Why didn't you take it out? And she opens her mouth and I say, don't you talk back to me. I'm the head of the house. Now, folks, there's going to be consequences. Natural consequences. You could say I earned them, I guess, but there's natural consequences of that. Now, I come home, I say, oh, wow, you look beautiful this evening. Boy, it smells good. What's cooking? Listen, let me get that trash. Is there anything else I can do for you? And I submit to meet her needs. There are consequences to that. What are they? None of your business. See, there are natural consequences. See, did you earn it? Well, we're not talking about earning. Is it payback? Well, it's not exactly payback. It's just. You guys got off the subject. Do you see that? See, well, what is he going to give me? That's not an issue. See, that's not in the picture, folks. Hey, I'm one with him and he's with me. What do I get out of this? That. See, I'm breathing. What's the consequences? Life. Well, did I earn it? Well, no. It's the natural consequences of breathing. That you live, man. You live. Do you get that? Hebrews says, that when I'm one with the Father and I'm his child, and the result of that is he comes and disciplines me. And when he disciplines my life, you know what happens? There's natural consequences out of the discipline of God in my life. I become like him, holy. And the holiness is a natural consequence of his presence and discipline in my life. He's the vine, I'm the branch. What's the natural consequence? I get to bear the fruit. Wow. That's the reward. Well, Manley, you didn't say anything about streets of gold. Big mansion? I know. Why didn't you say anything about it? Because I don't want one. What would I do with big chunks of gold in heaven when everybody's got it? Come on, the whole thing is ridiculous. See, I wasn't after gold down here. Why would I be after gold up there? See, I wasn't after a big house down here. Why would I want a big house up there? Well, what were you after down here? Oh, if I could know him. If I could be intimate with him. If in my helpless self, he could come in his amazingness and literally merge with me, literally become one with me, literally union with me, literally unite with me, literally. If that could happen and I could live there with no distractions, Jesus calls that prayer. See, that's not 9 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. That's, whoa. So I should be able to walk up to you and say, hey, what are you doing? Praying. Because what else is there to do? Jesus, wow. Everything I want in my life, everything I want in my life, everything I really want in my life, I cannot get by earning. It's going to be a natural consequence of your presence. You living in me, and it'll just kind of be there. All the victory I want. All the calmness of heart that I desire. All the fulfillment for living. Everything I really want in my life. The love, the companionship, the belonging. Everything I'm after in my life that I really want is all found in this hidden place, in this secret place, in this place where you and I come together in oneness. Oh, Jesus, I confess to you this morning, I have been a self that lived out of itself. I have used you to get what I wanted. I've stood on the street corner and said fancy words. I've lived out of my helplessness and ended up in disaster. Could I open my life to you? Could I come to the secret place? Could I dwell in the hidden place? Could I shut the door, lock it, throw the key away? Could I go to the storage place of my life where the most valuable treasure of my existence is? You and me. In oneness. Filled with you. Loving you. Knowing you. Heads are bowed. I don't know where you are in your spiritual journey. Maybe you're a saint of God. Wonderful. Maybe you don't know him at all. Could I plead with you wherever you are? Would you go? Pray. Shut the door. Go to your room. Not a physical location. A place of openness to Him. Would you risk wherever you are, saying, Lord, I give you the right to invade me and do anything in me that needs to be done so you can invade me and establish within me, at the core of my life, oneness, merger, intimacy, union with yourself. And help me to dwell in the hidden place. Maybe you have a hidden place. Maybe you have an intimacy with Him. Maybe you do know Him. Maybe He has come to live within you, but you've been distracted. Come on, man. Get out of that, would you? Would you run to Him? Would you come back to Him? Would you discover all over again the hidden treasure? Would you see it? Would you? Hey, our altar's open. It's a physical place, yeah. But it has great spiritual significance. Not because it's a physical place, but because it's a spiritual place. And in this atmosphere, you could kneel. You could open. And maybe you've let the things of your day distract you instead of bringing Him into the things of your day. They've distracted you from Him. Why did you do that? Would you go to the hidden place? Would you concentrate? Would you experience the consequence of the wonder of who He is in you? I want to kneel. Want to join me in just seeking Him?